Rama, Hare Hare. Said yesterday evening we speak something about again. Maybe you remember that one of my godbrothers was Liverpool, the competitor, the spoke a little bit about it. For many years before COVID, the summer us together. And when you and he spoke on sadhu-sanga, they were going to speak. I plan to speak this evening on the first of the verse of sadhu-sanga, the verses that are focusing on the importance of sadhu-sanga. In the bottom right corner, chapter 25 from Canto 3, starting with text 20. And you add another 7 and we get 27. So it's, for your information, sadhu-sangastaka. I don't know how celebrated it is in Vaishnava circles. It's certainly something that is meaningful to him. And just a little bit about Dravida. He's a poet, and he sings and he dances when he gives class. It's really very, and it's not just for entertaining purposes. He's just a very lively and lovely devotee. So he composes poetry, English poetry, that says what the verse says, but it's in rhyming and meter. It's really. Then he gets the audience clapping and dancing. And says he's really a wonderful personality. So sadhu-sangastaka, verse number 1. And a little review of how this came up. Maybe you remember this painting. This is Devahuti sitting before Lord Kapila. Somebody asked, is there meaning to his golden hair? But he has golden hair. And ruddy complexion. So at the very beginning of this chapter 25, she asked an important question. How can I get over the grief that I'm feeling from separation from my husband? We've been together for tens of thousands of years. So I've become a little attached, and he's gone. How do I deal with the fact that then on top of that, you're going to leave? How do I maintain my Krishna consciousness when you are no longer around and my husband's no longer around? And he gave a quick response. If you like, you can go. I did bring the Canto 3, chapter 25. If you have a copy here in your house, Canto 3, chapter 25. He makes a short statement, then says a number of other things, and then goes into the expanding on that short statement. The short statement is, the path of liberation, it's devotional service to Krishna that comes from hearing, and the hearing is nourished by sadhu-sanga. That's why we have temples and why we have gatherings and why we just read Bhagavatam together, and it's sadhu-sanga. And so then she naturally wants to know how to practice it. So what's a sadhu? We'll be discussing this evening. What's a sadhu? What's the benefit of associating with a sadhu? And how to associate with a sadhu? What do you do? What does it mean? Here's a painting of Narada Muni giving his association to a number of sadhus, like saintly people, and they're, he's discussing and they're asking questions and they're doing what sadhus do together. So Kapila's first instruction to Devahuti is that the path of liberation begins with association of sadhus. Well, not only begins with the association of sadhus, but it's nourished and continues, and even in the stage of perfection, it's imperative. It's not optional. Another place, there's many places, we'll be discussing some of them. One other place where this is discussed is in Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's talks with Sanatana Goswami. There's going to be an image, something on the screen here with that conversation. Sanatana Goswami was the eldest of the 6 Goswamis of Vrindavan. Now, there's one person here, our friend from Mongolia. What's your name again? Orila. Orila. Oyulea. Orila. Something like that. Could you sit a little bit to the side so I can have eye contact with her? We're going to see a photograph, a painting shortly of the 6 Goswamis of Vrindavan. Who are they? They're associates of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Who's Chaitanya Mahaprabhu? Do you know who that is? Not yet. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is an incarnation of Krishna who came to teach the process of chanting Hare Krishna. The primary means of achieving spiritual perfection for this age. This age is a long one, 432,000 years according to the Bhagavatam, according to the Vedic picture. It's like a season, it's a long season. He came towards the beginning, and he came to teach the primary means of elevation of consciousness through congregational chanting of the holy name, just like everyone was doing. That is what Lord Chaitanya came to give. And he gave teachings along with it, but he didn't write those teachings. He gave the teachings to the 6 Goswamis of Vrindavan, and he asked them to write the books, to explain. He empowered them, gave them the spiritual potency to understand everything he was saying and to write books to expand it. That was pretty good. You got a front row seat and everything. Okay. So one of those principal associates of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who he gave direct instructions to, were 6 very elevated saintly persons. The eldest of them was Sanatana Goswami. So Lord Chaitanya spent several months, 2 months, with Sanatana Goswami at a holy place in North India. And he was instructing him in the science of spiritual life. So in the course of his explaining, he started with something very interesting. The very interesting thing, Sanatana, a little bit more. Sanatana Goswami, before he was Sanatana Goswami, he was the prime minister under the government of one of the Mughal kings. He left He had like aristocracy and wealth and power and everything that many people want, and he just left it to be with Lord Chaitanya. He just left it. And when he came to Lord Chaitanya, he said, people consider me to be intelligent. I speak several languages, I'm highly learned, and da-da-da-da-da. But I don't even know who I am. I'm such a fool. So could you please instruct me, who am I? And the path to realize that? So Lord Chaitanya started explaining the creation. We've spoken a little bit now, a few times, about the creation. So in this creation, part of the creation, a small part, because the earth planet is a small part of the whole creation, there's many species of life. And of those many species of life, there are some that receive the human form, a small percentage. And of those that receive the human form of life, very small percentage of those are civilized. And then he gives a definition of what's civilized. They're seeking to know who they are, just like he was asking, who am I? And they're sincerely inquisitive. They want to know, who am I? And of those who ask the question, who am I? He's building like a little pyramid, and the little pyramid gets narrower as you go up. There's some that consult authorized scriptures to understand who they are. They're not just philosophers or poets or literary people. They read a lot and think a lot, and they really don't know. They're people that consult those that know. And then of those that know, so then he just keeps going. To get to the point where the topic is sadhu. He said, of those who are on the path of yoga, that means connecting with the Supreme. Yoga doesn't just mean asanas and hatha yoga. Yoga means connecting with the Supreme. Of those that are connecting with the Supreme, at the top of the pyramid of those connecting with the Supreme through yoga is bhakti. And then he explains, this is so, we're up the mountain quite a bit. To enter into bhakti, what's required is association of sadhus. Sadhus is one who live by sat. Sat means truth, with a capital T. So we discussed this, one of the classes, maybe it was this morning. In order to enter into bhakti, one needs the association of bhaktas. Bhakti means someone who's, in their heart, they're carrying devotion to the Supreme. They have an idea what is the Supreme, and they have that as a trajectory of their life towards the Supreme through serving and know, by the means of serving, to know the Supreme. That's a sadhu. So he gives verses and verses that says that's how bhakti begins. Then he goes on and says, even in the stage of perfection, sadhu-sanga is essential. It's imperative. Strong. Very strong. So that's our topic. It's the discussion with Kapila Dev to his mother Devahuti. And the starting point is the path of liberation begins with the association of sadhus. So that's something that he said very early in chapter 25, and now it's going to expand to the first of the sadhu-sanga astaka, the 8 verses that are explaining it further. And here it is. This is our verse for this evening. Let's say it together, once or twice, or responsively. Prasangam arjaram pasham atmana kavayo vidu saeva sadhushu krito mokshadvaram apavritam. One more time. Prasangam ajaram pasham atmana kavayo vidhu sa esha sadhu-shukrito mokshadvaram apavritam. Now the dvaram means gate, the last line. Dvaram means gate, and moksha means liberation. So it's the gate or the doorway to liberation. This prasangam with sadhus, sadhu-shukrito. Here's the translation. Every learned man knows very well that attachment for material, for the material, is the greatest entanglement of the spirit soul. But that same attachment, when applied to the self-realized devotees, that's the sadhus, self-realized devotees, opens the door of liberation. Shortly, we're going to see another verse that says almost the same thing, it's just the Sanskrit is different. And it's spoken by King Rishabdev. If you remember yesterday evening, there's a list of certain type of avatars. And in that list was Rishabdev, and I asked, people didn't seem to know who was Rishabdev. But if you look in the Bhagavatam, Canto 5, Chapter 5, you'll find Rishabdev in 6 and 7. There's some details. So he was an incarnation of a certain category, and he gave teachings. And the teachings he gave were to his sons. And his eldest of his many sons was Bharat Maharaj, who later became the king after his father retired from being the king and did what his father did. Bharat Maharaj became the king. And further, the planet was renamed. Bharat Maharaj was such a prominent king that they renamed, the people on the planet, renamed the planet after him. I'm just guessing, where you live is known as Avery Ranch, right? It's probably, Mr. Something Avery owned a ranch. He was such a dude that they named the place after him, Avery Ranch. Something like that. So they named the planet after Bharat Maharaj. He was such a prominent person. And his father, Rishabdev, giving instructions to his son, knowing that he was going to turn over the kingdom, he gave it almost the same language, different language, the same message. And we'll see that verse this evening. So this is the first of the sadhu-sangastaka verses. One association leads to liberation. Another association, the principle of speaking here is attachment, not just association, but you become attached to that which you associate. Just like Devahuti, she became attached to her husband. And who can imagine how attached she was after associating together for thousands of years, because in previous ages, lifespan was longer. In the present age, lifespan is shorter. Here's a cartoon. Here's devotees doing things that everybody does, and but they're in relation to Krishna. So the message in the purport is, attachment can't be killed, it simply has to be transferred. That's right within the purport of this verse to text number 20. And Prabhupada writes in the purport also, this desirelessness is not possible for a living entity. It's a buzz. It's a Buddhist buzz, primarily, because Buddha had a very core teaching, fundamental teaching. The fundamental teaching is the root cause of suffering is desire. You want to become free from suffering? Become free from desire. That's not easy. According to this statement, you can't. So we'll discuss it a little bit. It's, in other words, it's of the soul. There's the purified state of desire, and there's the contaminated state of desire. And Buddha's teaching is become a stone. Or let's say, the process of becoming desireless is keeping it simple. There's teachings, of course, but it's two things primarily. One thing is live a life of goodness. That's the incubation chamber for desirelessness. Compassion, nonviolence, truthfulness, simplicity, mode of goodness. From the Bhagavad Gita language, mode of goodness. Live a life in mode of goodness. And then what goes inside that life of mode of goodness is meditation. Meditation, there's teachings that says in Buddhist writings, what exists? Well, according to Buddha's teachings, the only thing that exists is the moment. You a little bit familiar with this? Buddhist teachings? Not much. Okay. I prepared a seminar one day. I'm going to give it. It's like the 301 Krishna consciousness, but it's from Jiva Goswami's writings from the Sandarbhas. For those of you who are interested someday, I have an idea where and when. So, Buddha's teaching. Listen, if you like to learn something about Buddhism, it's called Kshanik Vada. Kshanak, what does Kshanak mean? We discussed yesterday at the temple this chapter from Canto 3, Chapter 11, called Calculation of Time by the Atom. Remember that? And the smallest unit of time, according to Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 11, is the time it takes for the sun to cross one atom. Now, who can calculate that? But the Bhagavatam gives it. And then so many atoms, 5 atoms or 10 atoms makes another unit, and then so many makes another unit. And Kshanak is one of the units of time. It's less than a moment. It's a fraction of a second. And it's sometimes translated as the blink of an eye. No, how long does it take for your eye to blink? That's it, Kshanak. So, Kshanak, Vada means doctrine. And Buddha teaches that the only thing that exists is the moment. So, the process of Buddhism is to be in the moment. You know, everyone, it's a common phrase, mindfulness. Everyone knows that one. That it comes from Buddhism. Be in the moment, be in the moment, be in the moment. Because the tendency is the past and future. We plan the future and lament over the past. And anything would be in the moment. So Buddhism, one of the primary teachings is all there is the moment, because the past is gone and the future hasn't come yet. So all there is the moment. So if you're a good Buddhist monk, or a good Buddhist anything, you live a life of goodness and you practice mindfulness. Be in the moment, be in the moment. And if you become a really successful monk, the goal is to go beyond the moment. If that's all that exists, what does going beyond the moment mean? It's enlightenment. And what's enlightenment? The Sanskrit phrase is nirvana. What does nirvana mean? It means, it's right in the Bhagavatam, cessation of material existence. It's right in Bhagavad Gita also, in the purports. Cessation of material existence. So when material existence ceases, what exists? Nothing. It's a philosophy of nothingness. And the highest reality is nothingness, or nirvana. Let's go backwards. That's on the other side of the moment, and all there is in this world is the moment. And we're not in the moment, we're in the past and the future. But if you want to get to be desireless, you have to go be in the moment and then go beyond the moment. It's notional. However, it's not possible. It's not possible. Why is it not possible? Here's why it's not possible. Because who we are is a living entity, and we're already timeless. We're not only in the moment, but the soul is eternal. There's no beginning and end. Not just a moment. There's no beginning and end to the eternal soul. And the nature of the eternal soul is like the Supreme Soul. That's the teaching. The living entity, the jiva, is a tiny fragmental part of the Supreme. That's easy. So since the Supreme is conscious, we're also conscious. You can't extinguish consciousness any more than you can extinguish the soul. But Buddhism is teaching you can extinguish consciousness because, yeah. The doctrine in Buddhism is that consciousness is the moment. And that's all there is. What is consciousness? It's the moment. And now that moment's gone. Now you're in the next moment. Now that moment's gone at the next moment. And you get on the other side of the moment and you get to who you really are. And that's you don't exist. So you can't annihilate the soul. Because the soul's eternal. As the part and parcel of the Supreme Eternal, we're eternal. You can't annihilate consciousness. You can't annihilate the soul. You can be mindful. It's good. There's mindful japa. Be with the mantra that you're chanting and not somewhere else, or the mind's on something else. So there's mindful japa, that's nice. But the goal is not to cease existence, but to align desire. It's exactly on the topic of this first verse. Align your desire or attachment or everything, align consciousness with the Supreme. The goal is not to annihilate consciousness. The goal is not to annihilate the soul. The goal is not to annihilate desire. That's supposing, we had this discussion, I remember, during this visit to Austin. Has anyone here had an operation where they've been put under anesthesia? A few of you. So when listen to this, according to the Srimad Bhagavatam, there's 3 states of consciousness, and anesthesia is the 3rd. It's a state of consciousness, but you're not conscious of it. They can cut you up and they can do all kinds of things, and you don't feel anything. And when the anesthesia wears off, there's no sense of having time pass. When you go to sleep, there's a sense of time passing. When you're under anesthesia, there's no sense of time passing. Susupti, it's called. There's a nice Sanskrit word, susupti. So there's awake, that's like now, we're kind of awake. And then there's sleeping, and sleeping includes dreaming. And then that's another term. And then there's deep sleep, the susupti state. So Buddhism is like entering susupti. It's anesthetizing the soul. But when the soul is anesthetized, does it stop existing? No. And when the anesthesia wears off, what happens? Desire. So desire is just anesthetized, but it's an unnatural state because of the soul. The soul is conscious. Consciousness may be deeply suppressed, but when the anesthesia wears off, desire is of the soul. So that's this statement. The attempt to become desireless, or the attempt to enter nirvana in the way that the Buddhists take nirvana. There's a non-Buddhist idea of nirvana. What's the non-Buddhist idea of nirvana? You begin full Krishna consciousness, full spiritual consciousness, full spiritual existence. The body, the mind, the senses, all this paraphernalia stuff, fully engaged in Krishna service. Ki Jai. That's the goal. It's the natural state of the soul. And the unnatural state of the soul is the covered state. The darkest of it all is under anesthesia. We've had some discussions about creation. This is the fourth time during this visit about creation. During the time of cosmic annihilation, where are the living entities? They exist, but they're in a susupti state within the body of Vishnu, Mahavishnu. They exist. They don't stop existing. Their bodies stop existing. Even the subtle bodies stop existing. But the soul doesn't stop existing because the soul is eternal. It's just wound up within the body of Mahavishnu and in a deep sleep state. And then when it's time, this is movements of the sun establishes time. During cosmic annihilation, there's no sun, but still time is moving because the measurements of time is through the movements of the sun in relation to matter, starting with an atom, and then, numbers of atoms and so forth and so on. But time is a Shakti that's existing whether there's a sun moving or not moving. Time is an energy. It's a fascinating science. Time is eternal. And to have creation, you have to have the other kind of time, like past, present, and future kind. So Buddha's idea is just be in the present, but you're still within time, and the soul is timeless. So the goal of bhakti, the goal of sadhu-sanga, is to come to timelessness, not desirelessness, but where you're existing in eternal time with the eternal supreme as the eternal soul, engaged in eternal activities. The realm of eternality, that's the spiritual world. That's where the train is going. Get on the bhakti train, that's where the train, at least that's the aspiration, however long it takes you to get there, that's where the train is going. And it begins through association of those that are carrying bhakti. Then you catch it. You get the flu, the bhakti flu. But it's a good flu. It's the nature of the soul, engaging in service to the Supreme and hearing about Him and remembering Him, etc. So desirelessness is not possible. A living entity, by constitution, has the propensity to be attached to something. That's on the soul platform. We see that if someone has no object of attachment, if he has no children, then he transfers his attachment to cats and dogs. And sometimes they have children and cats and dogs. And they sometimes have several dogs and several cats and children. But it's a tendency, the philosophical point that Prabhupada makes often, and it's here, that there's a tendency, it's on the soul platform. And if that soul platform tendency is disconnected from the Supreme Soul, then that tendency is going to go to something else. Now it's true, when that tendency goes to something else, there's suffering. So let's go back to square one and say, according to the teaching of the Vedas, the root cause of suffering is not desire. The root cause of suffering is ignorance. Root cause of suffering is ignoring Krishna. And when we have ignorance covering us, then we have ignorant desire. When we have ignorant desire, we have ignorant activity. We have ignorant activity, you suffer. The solution is knowledge. But not just information kind knowledge, but transcendental knowledge that you apply, you live by. So this is a transcendental knowledge item. If we don't have attachment for the Supreme, we're going to have attachment to something because it's of the soul. And you find something or several somethings and many somethings, and there's attachment. A living entity, by constitution, has attachment. So we have to be careful or discriminating about our attachments. And if the attachments is just for, in the material conception, our dear friend false ego tells us you're at the center. And your happiness is the standard of happiness. No, it may not be so harsh or gross or something, but that's at the center. And then that's the I conception, according to Srimad Bhagavatam. There's I and his companion mind. I is false ego, and mine is what comes from me. So if I think that I'm this body, which I'm not, then what's mine is what comes from the body. That's mine. So what comes from the body is byproducts of the body, like work. And then the product of work, the work product, that's mine. It's mine. So I work and I get payment, okay, it represents my work. And then with that payment, then I get stuff that's mine. A house and a car and Om Jai Jagadisha Hare. You know the song. You don't know the song. There's a song that's a conventional song that many people sing where they're asking for, stuff. And they're praying to God for stuff. Om Jaya, Jaya means victory. Om Jaya Jagadisha, the Lord of the universe, Jagadisha. Please, give me stuff. And it's a song that some groups of people like to sing. It's in Sanskrit, it's very melodious, and it's part of their ritual. They approach God for stuff. Om Jaya Jagadisha Hare. So the devotees here, they know that one. That's why they're chuckling. So that's not the purpose of sadhu-sanga. The purpose of sadhu-sanga is to transfer that tendency for attachment to transcendence, or to sat, to that which is eternal, not that which is temporary. Say it again. Supposing you don't have attachment for the eternal, are you going to have attachment anyway because it's of the soul? Yes. You'll be attached to the temporary. When you attach from the temporary, means I want to enjoy stuff. And my life is getting stuff, working hard to get stuff, so that I can become the enjoyer of stuff. And I can get the subtle happiness of thinking, look at all my stuff. I'm successful. I hope you're noticing. And if I don't get that acknowledgement, I feel, something's wrong with you. Or whatever. I feel something's wrong with me. I get depressed or something. So there's subtle and grosser forms of attachment. Sadhu-sanga means to transfer that attachment tendency to transcendence. The painting that's shown here, this is the second meeting of Sanatana Goswami with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And because of time, I'm not going to tell the whole story, but it's a nice story. I was thinking like this. I have presentations like this for the whole sadhu-sangastaka. And by the time I come to visit Austin again, I don't know when that is, but maybe by that time you'll be in chapter 25 of Canto 3. So if those coincide, maybe next time I come, I can go through the whole sadhu-sangastaka. Because it's a really important section of the Bhagavatam. Really important section. Okay, so now this is what the association of sadhu is important. A very natural next question, who is a sadhu? And some people think sadhu is somebody with a long beard and some sandalwood paste on his forehead and wears saffron cloth. That's a sadhu. That's not what a sadhu is. What a sadhu is someone, according to 3:25:20, someone who unflinchingly engages in devotional service. A devotee is a sadhu. An unflinching devotional service devotee is a sadhu. And they have unflinching faith, because that which helps keep them unflinchingly engaged in devotional services, unflinching faith. Now these terms are found elsewhere in the scriptures, but that detail I'm not doing this evening. And they follow the previous persons who showed by their example how devotional service is to be done. So the painting on the right side, that's Srila Prabhupada speaking from the scripture, and the top part of the painting is he's teaching Bhagavad Gita. The painting is Krishna speaking to Arjuna in Bhagavad Gita. And such a person like Srila Prabhupada is a true sadhu because they only speak Krishna's message. And speaking Krishna's message isn't so complicated. In fact, Prabhupada speaks about it being like a postal peon. A peon is not a very complimentary term. You've heard that word, peon? It means a small person, really insignificant, small person. Peon. So a postal peon is someone you write a letter, you put a postage stamp on it, you take it to the post office sends it to the destination, and the postal peon, the mailman, he delivers the mail. It's because he got your name on the envelope. So he just got your name on the envelope, he just puts it in your mailbox or sticks it under your door, whatever they do around here. And that's his job. He's a postal peon. It's not a big, he didn't write the letter. He doesn't open the letter and start editing the letter, then seal it back up and then put it under your door or your mailbox. He just delivers the letter. So Krishna has a letter. My dear devotee, so-and-so, please surrender unto me. Thank you very much. Hope to see you soon in the spiritual world. And that's Krishna's message for somebody. And the postal peon delivers the message. Krishna says, surrender unto him. He doesn't say surrender unto me. He says, surrender unto Krishna. And that's because that's Krishna's message. He's the postal peon. So a strict follower of devotional service is one who follows in that line of those who strictly follow devotional service. They just serve the previous person who does by repeating their message, ultimately repeating Krishna's message, or the message of transcendence. So that's who is a sadhu. Now, supposing someone, this is a verse from Bhagavad Gita, who's not eligible. Are the persons not eligible for devotional service? Everyone's eligible. The verse, chapter 9, verse 30, you know the verse very well. Api chet sudaracharo. Api chet means even if. And achar means behavior. And dur achar means bad behavior. And dur achar means very bad behavior. The painting is a painting of a hunter whose profession not only was killing animals with his bow and arrow, but he delighted in half killing the animals because he liked to watch them flapping as they were painfully suffering. His name was Magari. This is a nice story. In the painting, there's Narada Muni who sees these animals all over the place, half dead, flapping. And he sees who is the person doing this. So he approaches Magari and said, my dear Magari, This is not good. If your profession is killing animals, don't half kill them. Kill them completely. You're a sadhu. Why would you say something like that? He said, because they experience so much pain. Pain. I never thought that they experienced pain. He said, yes, not only they experience pain, but as you're causing them pain, you'll have to experience the same pain. Well, what do I do? Because my father taught me how to do this. And he derived lots of pleasure, so I learned to derive pleasure from half killing animals. If they're getting so much pain, what should I do? Well, stop killing. Well, if I stop killing, how will I maintain my family? That's how I maintain my family. He said, don't worry, I'll take care of it. If you have faith in me, break your bow. He looked at his bow, looked at Narada, looked at his bow, looked at Narada. He broke his bow. He had such faith. And Narada rescued him. The other painting shown on the right side is later. So Narada said, you live in this little cottage with your wife. Place a tulsi tree by the side of the cottage and just chant the holy name. And I'll see to it that all your needs are met. Magari trusted him, and that's what happened. People heard this wild man hunter that lived in the forest, half killing animals, has become a sadhu. Let's go visit him. And when you visit a sadhu, you bring something. So they brought this and that, and he was able to maintain his family just by becoming a sadhu. He was really surprised. So sometime later, Narada decided to go visit his disciple, Magari. And as you see in the painting, he brought with him a friend. And his friend, Angira Rishi, if I remember correctly, they saw the Magari from a distance. You see the painting way in the back, there's the cottage. By the side of the cottage, there's a tulsi plant. And, hey, Magari, and he saw them, and he came running, but he stopped because there were some ants on the path. So he took his upper garment off and started brushing the ants to the side because he didn't want to step on ants. The same man that was half killing animals as his profession now doesn't want to harm an ant. So Angira Rishi said, wow, Narada, you're powerful. You're a real sadhu. Because you can take a ruffian like this person and bring them, how they can become Shastre Koi, all scriptures say, lava matra. Lava matra means a fraction of a second. A fraction of a second. It's another one of those terms found in Canto 3, Chapter 11. It's a fraction of time, less than a moment. That's so powerful, it's so important. Sarva Siddhi. Siddhi means perfection. Sarva Siddhi means all perfections can come, even with just brief association. So that it's very, very valuable. Here's a verse in Canto 1, Chapter 18, Text 13 that says the same thing. Tula yama levanapi. There's that lavana again, the fraction of a second or moment's association. Tula yama lavanapi na svargam na punar bhavam. Bhagavat sangi sangasya. Bhagavat means in relation to Bhagavan. Just like this is Srimad Bhagavatam. It's the book in relation to Bhagavan. Prabhupada explains there are two types of Bhagavats. The book and the person. In relation to Bhagavan is Bhagavat. So, Bhagavat Sangi Sangasya Martyanam Kim Utashinishaha. The value of a moment's association with the devotee of the Lord cannot even be compared to the attainment of heavenly planets or liberation from matter, and what to speak of worldly benedictions in the form of material prosperity, which are for those who are meant for death. Pretty strong. There's the same message repeated in different ways. The painting on the left side, that's Maharaj Yudhisthira at the feet of Narada Muni, and he's making inquiries from Narada Muni. It's Canto 7, Srimad Bhagavatam. So as I mentioned already, here's that verse from Rishabdev. Mahat Sevam Dwaram Ahur Vimuktes. Dwaram, we mentioned already, the door or the gateway. Mahat is the great person, like Mahatma Gandhi. You've heard of Mahat. So Mahat is a great person. And Seva means service. Mahat Sevam. That's the Dvaram or gate or door for mukti, liberation. That's the first line. And then the opposite, the tamo, down. Tamagun, darkness, ignorance. The gate for ignorance is yoshitam sangi sangam, associating with people who are, yoshit means attached to material enjoyment. Specifically, it's male-female indulgence, unrestricted male-female indulgence. That's the gate to going down. So a nice example, the royal road to liberation, is this one. It's found in the Bhagavatam. It's Narada Muni describing to his disciple Vyasadeva about his previous life. Now, those of you that you've already completed Canto 2, so you know this story because it's in Canto 1. In Canto 1, Narada tells his story to Vyas, that in my previous life, I was a nobody. I didn't know who my father was, and my mother was a maid servant that looked after an inn or a dharmshala or a place where people go when they're on pilgrimage. And when the 4 months of the rainy season came, these 5 men, sadhus, they came to stay, so I got the opportunity to serve them. And he was offering their meal and washing their clothes and doing this and that little menial thing the little boy can do for sadhus. And in that course of that association, he became elevated. They heard their talks. He was very gentle. And they showed compassion upon him, so they gave him extra teachings, aside from their own discussions amongst themselves. They gave him a process of meditation. And after the rainy season, they left. And after the rainy season when they left, his mother died. She died of a poisonous snake bite. So he's the little boy, all alone. Now no mother as well as no father. But he didn't become discouraged. He understood somehow this is an arrangement of the Supreme, and he left and went traveling here and there, doing his meditation in his previous life, little boy. And as he got a little bit older, one day in his meditation, Lord Vishnu appeared. And then suddenly he disappeared. He was startled. And the voice spoke to this little boy, saying, I normally don't show myself unless one is fully qualified. You're not there yet, but I decided to show myself so that for the rest of your life you please continue, and at the end of this life you'll become perfect. That was a powerful experience. So he continued, and at the end of his life, he became Narada Muni. Narada tells this story to his disciple. So that's the benefit of Mahatma. One becomes, in consciousness, one becomes elevated. And then there's the royal road to hell. So remember what it says? Tamo dwaram yoshitam sangi sang. Some similar Sanskrit, but the wrong association. It's the path to hell. And here's the path to hell. Bad association leads to bad desires, leads to bad activities, leads to the royal road to hell. So better to associate with sadhus. And what do the sadhus give when they give association? Well, this is the 6 Goswamis. I promised you would see a nice picture. Here they are, at least a painting of them. And in the middle is Sanatan and his brother Rupa. You'll hear those names again and again. Rupa and Sanatan, chief amongst those 6 Goswamis. And if one associates with a sadhu, the sadhu will teach him by example and by their words how to become a devotee. This is a painting of one of the 6 Goswamis, Jiva Goswami, speaking Srimad Bhagavatam at the Radha Damodar temple in Vrindavan. You recognize it? Have you been there? Have you been to the Radha Damodar? Yes, you. No? Well, now when you go there, you'll recognize, because there's steps lead up to the altar, and there's this marble courtyard area, and there's Jiva Goswami, because he resided at the Radha Damodar temple, and speaking Srimad Bhagavatam to some nice devotees. So a gift, one of the gifts of a devotee is they teach how to become a devotee. They teach how to become a sincere servitor. And they give teachings about how to engage in worship of deities. And the lower left, that's a king in Orissa during the time of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Mahaprabhu, eventually, he tested him, but he gave his association because of his humble service. The humble service of the king that was a game changer for his relationship with Mahaprabhu is he, the king, at the time of Rath Yatra, went before the cart of Lord Jagannath. Rath Yatra is a big festival in Jagannath Puri. Jagannath Puri is by the eastern side of India along the sea. And there's temple, massive temple, with millions of people that attend this annual festival, where the deities come out of the temple. They're placed on 3 carts, because there's 3 deities. And then there's a procession where they pull the cart with ropes and sing and dance and have a nice festival as they take the deity for a stroll or a ride on a cart. So that's the word Rath means cart. Yatra means festival. So during this Rath Yatra festival, the deity from the temple came out of the temple, and the king was sweeping the street with a broom. Very humble. And when Lord Chaitanya saw that, his heart changed. I want to give my mercy to this king. He's such a humble servant of Lord Jagannath. Jagannath is the name of the deity. Jagannath. So a sadhu teaches one how to become a sincere servitor, a devotee, and a worshipper. So that's who is a sadhu, the gifts of a sadhu. Now concluding, how to associate with a sadhu. This is a painting of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, pictured in the back, wearing saffron. And he's giving teachings. That's one of the things the sadhus do. And one of the persons in the front, towards the lower right side of the painting, that's Prabhupada in his college days. And it's a nice story. Most of the devotees know the story. The very first time they met, before even he continued with his Bhagavad Gita class, Bhaktisiddhanta instructed him, you're English speaking, you should go to the Western parts of the world, English speaking parts of the world, and teach this message to people in English speaking parts of the world. When it came to discussion, Prabhupada said, people outside of India are not going to respect India because India is under British rule. So first, get freedom from British rule, and then take the message, because then people will respect messages from India, because we're now free from British rule. And Bhakti, Prabhupada explained, Bhaktisiddhanta responded for 20 minutes, explaining it had nothing to do with time and circumstance. This message is transcendental. Do it now. And he gave a very lengthy, scripturally strong, powerful message. And Prabhupada accepted defeat. Although at that time he was a Gandhi follower. And Gandhi followers that was like their slogan, freedom from the subjugation of the British, stop British rule, and follow Bhagavad Gita. So how to associate with the Bhagavad Gita? And the main is, hear their instructions. And when you hear their instructions, then you're supposed to do something. You try to understand them, and when you understand them, then you practice them. Here's a painting of Lord Chaitanya giving instructions by the side of the Ganges. These instructions are not meant to improve our material condition. These instructions are not meant to improve our material condition. Your material condition may improve, that's nice, but it's not the purpose. These instructions are for understanding how to cut the knot of contamination, of material attraction. Remember back at the very, very beginning. We're going to be attached to something. So transfer attachment from the temporary to the eternal. Cut the knot of the temporary and elevate ourselves in devotional service. And here's the last slide. This is Lord Chaitanya giving his association to Haridas Thakur, very humble Haridas Thakur holding his beads. And Lord Chaitanya gave his mercy to Haridas Thakur. And similarly, if we approach sadhus, this sadhu-sanga this is the first verse of that group of 8. It's the path to liberation. And we should seek it. And then so it says, how do you tell who's a sadhu? What's the gifts of the sadhu? How do you take that association from a sadhu? And then we'll continue next time I come with verse number 21, if I remember. But some of you, I'm sure, will remind me. Can you talk over verse 8:21? Okay. Any discussion?
Hare Krishna Maharaj, it's a wonderful class again. So when you are explaining Nragari, at my workplace, I remembered one of my manager, she tells in the meeting that, do you know, many people get my face in their dreams. So I am such a notorious. And she is chuckling. So now she is the form of Mrugari, I felt.
Now she's what?
Like, I felt like she is a form of Mrugari.
Oh.
She is like credibility. She is feeling like she telling as if not joking. It's like credibility. She is telling that it's my power like that. Yes, that's what I want to share.
Okay. Interesting connection, Magari and your supervisor.
All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Please accept my humble obeisances, Guru Maharaj. I need a clarification. You mentioned about the consciousness and you were comparing with analysis with anesthesia. So I'm not clear about that topic. Could you please repeat?
Do it again.
The consciousness with...
I understand. You want me to do it again?
Please.
Okay.
Thank you.
There's two parallel things. One is Buddha's teaching about what consciousness is. And over here is the Vedic concept of what consciousness is. Since the Vedic concept is, since the soul is eternal, consciousness is also eternal. It's of the soul. The soul is both conscious and consciousness. The soul is conscious, and consciousness extends from the soul, just like a lamp and luminosity from the lamp. Remember that discussion? Do you remember that discussion from the Sunday class at the temple? Remember the picture of the lamp? So that's the Vedic conception. And the Vedic conception further says there are three stages of consciousness in this world. The contaminated consciousness. And that is awake, sleep, and deep sleep. Deep sleep is known as susupti. Susupti is like anesthesia. It's not that when you put somebody in anesthesia, under anesthesia, consciousness stops. It's just very covered. Enough so they can do what they have to do, and then the anesthesia wears off and they go back to what they were doing. Consciousness isn't extinguished. It's just a state of consciousness. And that state of consciousness is similar to the state of consciousness during cosmic annihilation. You're leaning forward like, you want me to say it again? Cosmic annihilation is at the end of creation, everything is wound up. The whole, all the universes, not just this one, finished. The grosser manifestations finished. Even the mind, intelligence, false ego manifestation finished. It's all wound back up into the unmanifest state. Prakriti is eternal, but it sometimes manifests, sometimes not. So in the unmanifest state, what happens to the eternal living entities? According to the Vedic picture, they're withdrawn into the body of Mahavishnu. And the state of consciousness is susupti. So anesthesia, cosmic annihilation, and Buddhism. It's just suspending consciousness, but consciousness can't be annihilated because the soul can't be annihilated, and the soul is conscious in consciousness. So what is it then? It's suspending consciousness. That's all. like anesthesia, suspend, it's not active. But the souls don't stop existing. You want more clarification, or you're good? Kind of. You want to ask a specific question about the kind of? Or you want me to do it again a third time?
Little complex topic for my brain, so.
It's just, okay, we'll do it again.
Meaning like you
I'm
mentioned.
sorry, but it's not complex. There's states of consciousness. There's awake, there's sleep, and there's deep sleep. Conscious, conscious, conscious. States of consciousness.
You mentioned about the desireless in when you are in consciousness, right?
Because that's a teaching of Buddha. The goal of Buddhism
Okay.
is become desireless. I described the method of becoming desireless. However, it's notional. It's like anesthesia. But it's not possible because the soul, being part and parcel of the Supreme Soul, who is supremely conscious, we have qualities like the Supreme Soul. We're conscious beings. You can't become desireless. You can anesthetize, but you can't become desireless. And when the anesthesia wears off, desire comes out again. It's unnatural. It's not only it's unnatural, it's impossible. Desirelessness is not possible. You got it?
But when in the time of anesthesia, like you don't feel
You're
like
not
any.
feeling anything, but it's
anything?
not the soul goes out of existence. It's just covered.
But my question is, I need a clarification that we don't have any desires, but that
No,
state
that's
like
not correct. It's just anesthetized.
that time I'm
It's
saying.
anesthetized. It doesn't go out of existence. You're not, consciousness is not detecting it, but it's of the soul. Let's go, I don't need to say it again.
Okay.
In the pure state, there's desire. In the pure state, it's desire in relation to the Supreme.
But in the state of anesthesia, like the thought, the state will be there.
You're
right,
repeating yourself, and I don't want to do it again.
Maharaj? Okay, Maharaj.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Anything online or anything else in the room? In the way in the back. Way in the back.
All glories, Maharaj. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Maharaj, how to groom the younger generation with, like younger generation means the upcoming generation with detachment and detachment, yes. Like, it's like, especially this age of Kali, Maharaj, like with
It's
all
not just the age of Kali. This is a certain phase of time in the age of Kali, and younger generation people have a certain, liking and disliking, and it's good to tune into their liking and disliking. But the principle doesn't change.
Okay, Maharaj.
So the principle, the sadhu principle, and you as an adult, or you as a parent or father or something, is understand the needs, and the deeper sense know what the spiritual needs, and try to align those needs with the deeper spiritual needs.
Okay, Maharaj. Okay, Maharaj.
So, for example, I see this nice photograph over here of somebody dancing. So dance. And I know she also likes singing. So sing. So connect the needs and the psychophysical nature thing with It's do it for Krishna. That was that little cartoon at the very beginning, the second slide. So now there's subtler features too. Like, for example, younger generation people, they want to make their own decisions. It's like, authority, they're allergic to authority. There's a tendency, it changes, but, currently that's. So it's an art to understand how to help find out what the interest of that young person is, and to, within some boundaries, there's some boundaries, there's some lines you don't cross, but within the boundaries, then find out what the nature of interest is and provide resources for that according to the interest. Without forcing, without ordering, do this, don't do that. It's the art of parenting, it's the art of teaching, it's the art of loving, the art of living. Yes. Have relationships with people that you want to understand what's important to them, what do they like, and how to, as much as they're inclined, without pushing it or forcing it or demanding it or vibing it. I'm not going to be nice to you if you don't do what I want. Anyway, you nurture that which is their nature, and then you've captured their heart. We discussed this at length, not specifically the younger generation part, but acting as an authority out of love. It was between Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and the word that was used many times was sneha, which means affection. And if someone, anyone, not just a younger generation person, if someone feels there's affection for them, they're more likely to want to go in a wholesome direction as some indication from that person who has affection for them, than if they're being, directed, go in that direction. Then it's not coming from a place of affection. It's one of the, but it's not just a present generation, younger generation. Something that Prabhupada taught. I'll say it shortly, and I think we'll end. What Prabhupada taught is for children, this is a parenting topic. And I don't want to go off on the parenting topic because it goes on forever. When a child is small, up to the age of 5, as long as they're not hurting themselves or other children, let them do. Now, the boundary is they don't hurt themselves or other children. Let them do. At the age of 5, then discipline begins. Then Prabhupada was explaining very clearly, discipline must be based upon a loving relationship. That is to say, if the child understands from the teacher or the parent or the adult that there's love, they'll be happy to follow. And if it's not, if it's just strict, they may follow. But when the authority person is not around, they're going to, in defiance, do anyways, or because they're curious or something. But it's protection of the child to have a loving relationship with the child. And then Prabhupada explains, when the child reaches teenage, then the relationship changes from authority that's guiding through affection and love to you become a friend. You sit at the table, and you're not at the opposite sides of the table. You're on the same side of the table looking out at the world, saying, what do you see? Like friends would do with a friend. You're the senior friend, that hasn't changed, but it's friendship. And when there's friendship, then the teenager is more likely to share what they're seeing and feeling and going through than if it's an authority person. That's not a guarantee, but it's more likely between a friend and a friend. So you just dial the relationship in a different way. You're a friend. I get young people telling me things that, you know, it starts with, don't tell my parents. But, you know, I'm older than their parents, but because there's a relationship where I treat them in a way that to treat them with dignity and respect, you know, they're ready to share. And when they're ready to share, it means something. They're ready to receive some, at least a pointer, but with a pointer is not, don't do that, do this. It's not micromanaging that young person. It's, you know, it's, oh, really? And then what happened? And then what did you feel? And then what did you say? And then what did you do? What did you consider as options for you when that happened? What do you think is the best? You know, just by the method of asking questions, you can help guide them to make wise decisions. Now, sometimes they insist, please instruct. Don't just, you know, help me build a menu of options and then select from the menu. What do you think? When that signal is clear, then you can indicate what you think, but don't mandate. I don't, at least. It's rare, on occasion. When I understand it's really what they want, and they can do it. There's not going to be resentment later, but very sparingly. That's a big topic. I'm not going to go with it anymore. Thank you very much, Srila Prabhupada Ki. Right.
Gurma, there are 3 questions online.
Oh. Okay.
Should I read it?
And then that's it. Go ahead.
Okay, 3 questions. The first question, can practicing devotees give beneficial association to others?
Yes. Not can. Must. Next.
Next question. How do I draw a line with attachment to kids in this material world
I said I'm not going to take parenting questions.
where all non-devotees go in that rat race above beyond providing top-of-class facilities to their kids?
Be a good example. Smile. Be accepting of, at least the temporary. And if you're exemplary and not judgmental, you're more likely to attract such a person to bhakti. You're more likely to attract bees by honey than by vinegar. That's my answer. And they're making choices, and you spirit souls make choices. You can't micromanage their choices. So continue to be exemplary. Continue to be exemplary.
Yes, practicing sadhus. When do we stop caring for material needs? Does this happen for the people? They stop caring for material needs.
Sadhakas, which we do. We try to do as best we can. And when we get, distracted, we try to get back on path. That's why we have association devotees. They can tap us on the shoulder and saying, Prabhu, you're headed for the ditch. You better sit straight. Well, thank you. Okay. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
His Holiness Prabhupada Swami Maharaj ki jai.